It's about the process that we went through to pick Herschel Walker, right? We let Donald Trump dominate the scene and handpick somebody that he wanted to win and not necessarily who was best to represent Georgia in the Senate. And we've been here before, right? We've watched him train wreck our election process. We watched him run roughshod across 2 U.S. Senate seats that were trying to stay in office. And then we watched him run David Perdue against Brian Kemp.
That was the Republican Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, who you will be shocked to hear is not on the ballot for re-election this November, talking freely there about how his party is stuck with the Trump-endorsed Georgia Senate candidate, Herschel Walker. This all follows the enormous scandal surrounding Walker, stemming from a report by the Daily Beast saying that Walker, a guy running on a platform to ban all abortions, reportedly paid for an abortion for an ex-girlfriend in 2009. Walker denies this, and NBC News has not yet independently verified these allegations. But even before all of this, it was completely clear that Walker was manifestly unqualified to serve in the United States Senate. And the latest Walker scandal is helping Democratic incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock, who has opened up a lead in the polls. An aggregate from 538 shows Warnock leading Walker about 48 to 44. But this boost does not appear to be helping the other Democrat running statewide next month in Georgia, Stacey Abrams, who is currently trailing incumbent Republican Governor Brian Kemp by over 5 percentage points, according to 538. So it's looking like a fair few Georgians are planning on splitting their votes next month. Joining me now to discuss all of this and more is Stacey Abrams, the Democratic candidate for governor in Georgia. Thanks so much for coming back on the show. According to the polls, there do seem to be plenty of voters in Georgia, Republican voters, independent, swing voters, who are willing to vote for Raphael Warnock, but not for you. Why do you think that is?
I think that polls are a snapshot, and it's a question of who turns out to vote on Election Day. I think that there are those who are watching this race on the Republican side, and what they are seeing very clearly is the hypocrisy of Republicans. Brian Kemp said in response to the allegations against Herschel Walker that it was a personal choice and he doesn't get involved in the personal choices of others. And yet this is the same governor who has imposed a 6-week abortion ban on women, interfering with their personal choices. He is someone who does not believe in marriage equality, interfering with the personal choices of who people love. He has made it his business to interfere in the personal choices of Georgians, except for the Georgians that are on the ticket with him. And the reality is that the hypocrisy that we are seeing is going to continue to move voters into our column, and on Election Day will put Democrats in office.
And you have Republican voters in Cobb County who were trying to challenge the eligibility of more than 1,000 voters, most of whom are people of color. Yes. You have the Kemp campaign running ads against you in which your skin color has been darkened. How much is racism driving the GOP effort to save the governorship in Georgia?
I think, unfortunately, what we have seen from Brian Kemp is a continuation of 12 years of racist behavior when it comes to voting rights. Let's be clear, this is the governor who purged 1.4 million voters, who disenfranchised and held hostage 50,000 voter registrations in 2018, who unfortunately in 2021, passed a leading law that has become the pattern across the country for voter suppression, SB 202, a law that makes it more difficult to apply for an absentee ballot, especially if you're a senior citizen or if you're a person of color who speaks English as a second language. He also authorized white supremacist groups like those that are challenging thousands of voters across the counties in the state of Georgia, and they can continue to do this up to Election Day. What happened in Cobb County happened in Gwinnett County, which is the most diverse county in the state. And what we have seen is that SB 202 under Brian Kemp is a continuation of a racially charged approach to achieve voter suppression, because the electorate in Georgia is quickly changing and he does not like the change. And what happened in Cobb County, luckily, those challenges were dismissed. But the reality is those challenges can continue because he's outsourced voter purging. And what is more concerning to me is that they are disproportionately people of color, disproportionately students, who may receive this ominous letter in the mail within days of the election saying your right to vote has been challenged. And for many of these voters, they will see this as a reason not to vote. That is how it becomes voter suppression. So whether they are successful or not in the challenges, Brian Kemp authorized unlimited challenges to voting rights in the state of Georgia, and that is unconscionable.
According to Politico today, referring to the midterms and midterm polling, quote, what clouds the picture is that the much discussed improvement for Democrats since the Dobbs decision, on abortion, also coincided with a 99-day drop in gas prices. Now gas prices are rising, and despite a good jobs report on Friday, the news is filled with gloomy headlines about the economy. So is the Dobbs effect fading as the economic storm clouds gather? That's what Politico asks. I'm wondering, do you think abortion, what are you seeing on the doorstep? Is it falling out of focus as a major issue this fall?
Not at all. It is such a clear issue for women in the state of Georgia. You have to remember, we have 82 counties without an OBGYN, 64 counties that do not have a general surgeon, 18 counties that do not have a family doctor, 9 counties without a doctor at all. We're about to lose a level 1 trauma center in the center of Atlanta, one of only 5 in the state, the 6th hospital to shut down under this governor. And under this governor, 1 in 5 women does not have access to health care. And now with the specter of forced pregnancy, because Brian Kemp is the governor of Georgia, this is a daily conversation because it is as much an economic issue as it is a health care issue. And Brian Kemp has proven time and again he does not care about the women of Georgia. He does not care about their health care. He does not care about their economic situation. And under his extreme and dangerous policies, we've lost the All-Star Game, we've lost access to Music Midtown, and we are going to lose the entertainment industry because he continues to put his own personal choices about our freedoms ahead of the needs of Georgians. And what we know is what we saw in Kansas, what we saw in New York, what we saw in Alaska, and what we're seeing right now in voter application submissions, 60% of which are coming from women. That is a high water mark we have never seen in Georgia. And I think it shows that women are very much concerned about the future of their lives, the concerns about their bodies and their right to health care and their right to make their own choices. And as the next governor of Georgia, I can repeal that law and protect the women of Georgia and the women of the South.
So sticking with this issue of abortion and Republican extremism and hypocrisy, there's this controversy surrounding Herschel Walker. It's caused Jeff Duncan, the lieutenant governor, to publicly disown Walker. But most Republicans in Georgia and nationwide have not done that. Top Republican senators are going to Georgia to campaign with him. Brian Kemp, as you mentioned earlier, the governor who you're running against, has not disowned Walker or unendorsed him. What do you make of the allegations against Herschel Walker? Is he a hypocrite if they're true? And should Brian Kemp be disowning Herschel Walker at this point?
Hypocrisy is a contagion in the Republican Party, and it seems to have its patient zero here in Georgia in Brian Kemp. If he believes, as he states, that there should not be a right to an abortion, then he should absolutely stand in that position. But that is not the issue here. He does not believe in a woman's right to choose. He does not believe in the freedom that we should enjoy, the freedom to vote, the freedom to control our bodies. He also opposes marriage equality. And we know that right now what we are facing in Georgia is the possibility of essentially a governor who's either in line and in lockstep with Clarence Thomas as he dismantles our freedom, or a governor who stands up to Clarence Thomas and stands up for Georgians. That's my intent, and I believe that in 29 days, that will be the reality.
And last question for you. We had Stuart Stevens, the former Republican strategist, on the show earlier. He said Democrats should be running on democracy. That's what they should be putting on the ballot. Is that the top issue for you in your run? Or is it abortion rights? Is it the economy? What is it?
Democracy undergirds every issue because the only way we get the freedom to control our bodies, the only way we get education, health care, housing, the only way we can force leaders to listen to us is through democracy. And that is why I will always stand up for voters and demand access. That is why I push back every time I hear people lauding Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger. Refusing to deny the outcome of an election does not absolve you of your participation in denying access to elections. And that has been the raison d'etre for Brian Kemp for more than 12 years. And this year it has to end. And that is why I'm encouraging every Georgian to understand that democracy has to be defended. And we can do that on November 8th.
Stacey Abrams, we will have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.